welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm actually going to be covering something that was requested from you guys, but also from my friends who are in Year 12 as well. And so I thought, why not film a whole video and hopefully I can help a whole bunch of you guys as well. Basically, because there is still a little bit of time before exams start, I thought it'd be perfect to just try and cover some last minute things, really focus on the subjects that I did so I can help you guys out if you do them as well. And honestly, you could use this video as a guide to see how you're tracking or find different things that you can do if you're kind of stuck on studying, or even just use it if you're not in Year 12 and just want to kind of learn a little bit before you get into it. So sit back, relax. I'm going to cover some things I learned from lectures, heaps of helpful tools, and just a whole bunch of things you may want to know. Alrighty, so I thought it would make sense to start off with English as it is compulsory and all you guys watching this will be doing it. So one thing I did getting ready for my English exam was I constructed a really good introduction for my comparative and also text response, just so I feel like I had something in place and I could just write it down and then get onto my essay as soon as possible. So I actually have some old notes here that I will just read from and give you guys a couple of examples of what I kind of had. So I had things like Arthur Miller in his 1953 play The Crucible, ... Geraldine Brooks's historical fiction, ... And then even for the comparative, I had Miller maintains a relatively neutral ... Brooks offers a more overt message, blah blah blah. So if you can create a little basis and you just fill in the dots when you get your exam question, it's going to be a lot easier and you're probably going to feel a little bit more prepared because you have something that you can just write straight away after reading time. Now, another thing I did that I found really helpful was I got some of the best quotes from each of the novels and I wrote down all of them on like an A4 page and I ended up categorizing them into like themes, symbols, all that type of stuff. I'll also put some photos on the screen so you can see a little bit better, but I've got my Crucible quotes, a whole page, and I've got them color coordinated as well. Year of Wonders, so those are my two comparative pieces, and then also all my Frankenstein quotes as well. Now, another helpful thing is to always try and save the previous year exam for the last thing that you do. Do all the older ones first, make up questions yourself, and then when you feel ready a couple days before the exam, do the 2019 one or whatever is in your study guide, and then that way you will kind of feel a bit more prepared for what you're gonna get. Also, another thing I did when I got lazy and so sick of just writing essays constantly was I would find essay questions or just even the ones I made up myself, and I would sit at my desk, try and do it in like exam conditions, even wear your school uniform so you kind of feel like you're in the moment, and literally sit there, time yourself, do not touch anything for 10 minutes and literally just sit there and plan what you would write, plan what quotes you would put in there, and just do that for the whole 10 minutes so you kind of get used to that feeling, because in the exam you're not going to be able to highlight any keywords. You're going to have to sit there staring at the question for 10 minutes, so you may as well practice that and just get used to the idea. Now, another thing that I did will probably help you guys if you don't really understand the book. I was just that person that got confused with all the events, didn't know when they happened, but something really helpful is to just write down the whole book in order of like the major events that happen, things that may be potential questions. Make sure you get that in your little event list, and you can even go onto Spark Notes and just see those chapter summaries and make sure you get everything in there. Now, another thing that covers quite a lot of important information is from a lecture that I went to, and I'm going to share some of the notes that I gathered from that and something that you may want to just start practicing as well while you're studying for English. So one of them is to try and create a table of positive, neutral, and negative authorial message tones, so you're not constantly saying the same word in the essay the whole time. Basically, I just made a little table, and for positives I had words like advocates, praises, supports. Into negative I had denounces, condemns, critics, and then neutral you just have like the simple ones like convey, highlights, illuminates, acknowledges, all those type of words. So if you can try and make a table and remember those keywords, then you won't be repeating the same thing in the essay the whole time, and I'm pretty sure the examiner will appreciate a larger vocabulary as well. Another important thing you should probably try and focus on is meta language. My teachers always spoke about this, but I literally never understood it, but I tried to like practice it as much as I could. But from the book that I was doing, a couple of things I had written down was like first person, poem, reference from the Bible, things like that. And also another really important thing, similar to the authorial message tones, is to figure out a whole bunch of transitioning words so you're not always saying the same thing again. So for example, you could have paralleling to this, in addition to this, providing a point of contrast, further to this, all of that type of stuff. Again, just so you're not saying the same thing all the time. Now another thing you should do is, again, try and make a table of literary devices, motifs and symbols. So for my 2 comparative books, I had The Crucible and Year of Wonders. I basically just jotted down the key symbols in them and also what they kind of meant. And then one lucky last thing you should do for your comparative book is, again, make a table of the 2 books and have differences and similarities, just so you're not writing on differences the whole time in the book. You do want to acknowledge similarities as well. So those are basically all the things from the little lecture that I gathered. I found it really important, and all of those are just little activities you can do for studying for the exam. Now another thing that's really important for English is to try and figure out what order you're going to write all your pieces in. So I'm pretty sure my school told us to do it in order of like ABC, which is your text response, comparative, and then the argument analysis. But again, whatever's going to work best for you, always stick to that hour time limit and you can't really go wrong with that. And also one lucky last thing that I'll share from you guys from my work, but also something you can do as well, is look back at all your previous SACs and write down all the feedback that your teachers gave you and see if there's anything repeating itself, and then obviously you can focus on that for your exam. But I'll read out some of mine as well because it may help you guys. So for my argument analysis, I had to ensure that paragraphs start with an argument. I don't know what was wrong with me. Have a precise description of tone, consistently thinking of what the reader will think, feel and do. If there are 2 separate pieces, they all need to be in the introduction. Mention every single image, so important. My teachers always banged on about this. So talk about the image if there is one, I'm sure there will be, and then be more precise on the intended effect. Moving on to my comparison feedback. Comparative opening sentence, I need to focus on that a bit more, I don't even know. Authorial message, comparison to close. Again, forgot what that means. Find differences, not just similarities. There you go. Need more quotes and evidence to be stronger, and be consistent replying to the question. And now lucky last is my text response. I had active voice in expression, make contention broad so you can expand, that's something really important, and contention in response to question. But yeah, those are basically all my key things for English. Now moving on to maths. So when studying for maths, you want to make sure you're not just doing your VCAR papers. Try and see with your teachers if they have any other different brands, because sometimes other companies have a lot harder questions or they're easier, so the more exposure you can get, the better. And now along with that one, if you find any question that's like super hard and you feel like you're just gonna forget how to do that, and like in the inside you're like, oh my god, I hope I don't get that, you might, who knows. So when you have a hard question and you figure it out and you got a lot of working out for it, literally cut and paste that whole page into your resource book so you have it, and if you need it, you got it. Now just repeating myself again, try and save the previous year's exam for the last thing that you do. So that's something I did and I found really helped me feel a bit more ready for the exam. Another thing you should probably invest in if you don't have it and you can kind of get your hands on one, is to definitely get a checkpoints book. It helped me so much, and I literally did the whole book with all the modules that I was doing, and I found it really helpful because there were so many multiple choice and short answer questions that just kind of gave me more exposure to potential questions. Another thing I did that you guys can do as well is try and repeat all your past SACs. I know you've done it and you probably can remember the questions, but literally just redo the whole SAC and see if you can improve your previous score, and that way you'll feel a little bit more ready for your exam as well. And another thing you may want to know is that I hand wrote my resource book throughout the whole year and did it along the way. So after I completed a whole chapter or a module, I just wrote down everything I needed to know at the time, and it really helped because I didn't have to stress about it at the end of the year. And then the last thing you want to make sure that's in your resource book is that you definitely have instructions on how to use your calculator. I know it's really simple and you probably think, why? I know how to use a calculator, but you never know. In the exam, you may fall under pressure and literally forget how to do the most simplest thing or graph. So make sure you have clear instructions on how to do every single potential question you may have. Now moving on to psychology. So for psych, I hand wrote my notes as well, and I did this basically throughout the whole year as I went. And also because it was handwritten, I kind of knew where everything was, I understood what I was saying, and it was really good because I kept it in a folder and I referred to it whenever I had a question about a certain topic or whatever. And another thing I did was whenever I did exam questions or a whole psych exam, always time yourself. There's no point doing the questions in your free time. You always want to try and time yourself. So if a question's worth 2 minutes, so if a question is worth 2 marks, you get 2 minutes to do it, and it's really good to make sure you stay on track and it kind of forces you to get everything down with that time frame. And along with that one, in psych, you have a big 10-mark question at the end. So try and do as many of those as you can and time yourself and make sure you get your teacher or whoever to mark it so you know how you're going with your progress. And another thing I did was I did every single chapter summary question in my textbook and just literally any question I could find. I'm pretty sure I had a checkpoints book for psychology as well. So if you can get your hands on one, do it because it's definitely worth it. It has VCAR questions in it and also different ones. So it's just a big book of exposure and potential questions you may get again. And then another thing I did for psych was I actually made chapter summaries for each chapter, obviously. But I found this really helped with me just remembering what topics were in what chapter and how they kind of correspond and stuff. Now moving on to health and human development. This one, it's really important to try and get different brand exam papers because I'm not sure if it was just the year that I did mine, but to keep within the study guide of like the 4-year gap, there were barely any questions that were what I was going to be tested on, if that makes sense. So if you can get different brands, make sure they are questions that are in your study guide and things and topics that you can get tested on. And another thing for health as well is that I redid every single SAC I had that year, so again kind of felt a bit more prepared. I also did textbook questions as well, and throughout the year I ended up typing all my notes while I was going, and I found that helped as well. And the next thing is because I had my typed notes and I also had access to a Drollo, which is really good, I would watch a Drollo, and if I found anything interesting or another way to remember something, I would annotate my typed notes, so I'll put them on the screen as well for you guys. But I found that really helped and it made me understand things a little bit deeper as well, and I had more examples if I had to elaborate on a topic as well. And then one last thing that I did was I made area of study mind maps, so I'll pop them on the screen, screenshot if you want, because I feel like they're very thick and have a lot of information in them, so go for it. Now moving on to physical education. So studying for PE, I also had a checkpoints book. This was really good. I tried to do as many questions in it as I could, and I also had a textbook and a workbook. I can put them on the screen as well if you just want to potentially get them, I don't know. But I did all the questions in those as well, just so I had so much exposure and just was more capable of answering all types of questions. And then for PE as well, I also had access to a Drollo, so I watched all those, did the questions in those, and there was also an option to do like practice exams and little quizzes on a Drollo as well, so I did all of them as well. I've literally said as well so many times. And also again for PE, I made area of study mind maps, and I feel like this helped as well. And then for PE, I was kind of stuck in a bit of a dilemma, but I was typing my notes as I went, and then after biomechanics I was like, something's not working. I'm not really remembering the information as well typing it, so I moved on to writing for the second half, and I felt like I understood the content so much more when I was writing it down. So that's basically my little journey for how I took my notes for PE. And moving on to my lucky last subject, which was visual communications and design. Favorite subject, but also the one that I barely studied for, which was not good. So for VCD, I only did VCAR exam papers, which was probably not that good, but I feel like there weren't many options besides that. So try and do as many as you can from VCAR, and then again, save last year's one to do lucky last. Now, a mistake I made when studying for VCD was I just did the easy questions. I would always do the theory ones and I'd never do the practical ones because I just couldn't be bothered, which was really bad of me. So if you're studying for VCD, make sure you do all the practical questions, the shading ones, drawing, planimetric, isometric. Make sure you do them and get heaps of practice trying all the different types, because that's something I lacked in and could have definitely tried a little bit better in. And when studying for VCD, I also hand wrote my notes, so I'll show you quickly. So here it is. Basically there's not that much to know, but these were just my handwritten VCD notes. Now, one last thing that I will touch on for studying for VCD. These are some really important things that I learned from a lecture that I went to, so I will share them with you. So in the exam, I'm pretty sure you're always going to get a question where it asks you to shade and color in a picture, and obviously you need to show the tone, texture, and color. And when doing that, make sure you do it in that specific order. Do the tone first, then the texture, and then color. So make sure you always do all the grey lid stuff first, and then you pop the color on the top. Don't try and do tone and texture with a colored pencil because it just won't work. And by saying this, make sure you practice and you know how to draw different textures and try and achieve that. So some good ones are wood, rubber, glass, plastic. Those are some really common ones that you should definitely know how to do. and also metal as well. That's a good one. Now another thing that was really interesting is when you bring erasers into the room, try and have one that has like a soft round edge, because that's really easy when trying to do glass. You can use the soft edge to rub it out and it kind of gives the glass effect. And then make sure the other side of your eraser is something sharp and rigid, so if you have small areas that you need to erase, you can use the corner of the rubber to do that. Now obviously another thing that's important, this may be really simple but it's crucial in a way, make sure you know the difference between an isometric and a planometric. Make sure you have the tools, both of them with you, so you can just do whatever one is on the exam, and make sure you know the particular degrees that you need to use for each of those as well. And then the last thing is obviously when you bring your colored pencils into the exam, make sure you have a wide range of grey lids as well, because 2B is used to render and then 4B is used to color. So make sure you have a range of different grey lids so you don't get stuck using the same one the whole time when you need to lighten it up or build it up. But anyway, those are all my subjects complete. I really hope they helped and they were really in depth and you kind of found some new ways that you can study, or you figured out some key things that you should really focus on. And I just really hope that it does help you guys and you got something from it and that you feel more comfortable and ready for your exams. But enough of me talking. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this helped, and go subscribe, go like, and I'll see you guys in my next video.